Hello and welcome to your daily word. Hello, my name is Pastor Kara, and today we are going to be starting a 6-week series on stewardship. A passage I think that shows us a lot about stewardship is Jesus' parable of the master and the servants, found in Matthew 25:14-30. It goes like this. Again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. He called together his servants and entrusted his money to them while he was gone. He gave 5 bags of silver to one, 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities. He then left on his trip. The servant who received 5 bags of silver began to invest the money and earned 5 more. The servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work and earned 2 more. But the servant who received 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid the master's money. After a long time, their master returned from his trip and called them to give an account of how they had used his money. The servant to whom he had entrusted 5 bags of silver came forward and had 5 more with him. Said, "Master, you gave me 5 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 5 more." The master was full of praise. "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together." The servant who had received the 2 bags came forward and said, "Master, you gave me 2 bags of silver to invest, and I earned 2 more." The master said, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with handling this small amount, so now I will give you more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together." The servant with 1 bag of silver came and said, "Master, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. And I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. Here's your money back." But the master replied, "You wicked and lazy servant. If you knew I had harvested crops that I didn't plant and gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit the money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest in it." Then he ordered, "Take the money from the servant and give it to the one with 10 bags of silver. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But those who do nothing, even with what little I have given, will have it taken away." The word stewardship comes from the Greek word oikonomos, which means a household manager. It is the responsibility the master gives over to one of his servants to take care of all the things in his household to run. It isn't a lowly position. In fact, it's one of great honor. To entrust your household to someone shows that you have trust in them and that you see great potential in them. We are all stewards of God's house and God's kingdom. He has given the responsibility to manage much for him. However, are we always living up to the expectation our master has entrusted with us? In the parable Jesus gave, there are some points that we can use to grow to become better stewards. The first is the recognition of ownership. In this parable, the master gives his servants his money while he is away. This isn't a gift, but something that he has entrusted them with to do something. His expectations weren't that they would just benefit from it themselves, but it would be used to benefit the household. We have been given so much by our Master and King. In fact, the Bible says in James 1:17, whatever is good and perfect comes down to us from God our Father, who creates all the lights in the heavens. Just take a minute and look at your life. Take a mental stock of everything that has come from God. Not only did all of these things around you come from Him, but you also come from Him. You are His creation. He made you and purposed you. Everything you have, including your body, your talents, your personality, they're all from God. And God has given us these things to be a steward over. Remember that. It's so much easier for you to use your gifts, your abilities, and who you are for God when you recognize that these things aren't yours. No, they have been given and trusted to you so that you can do more with them. The second is the recognition of action. 2 servants put their money into action. They went and they worked and they invested and they got great return. 1 hid it. And you can see that the first 2 from the master's response did the right thing, and the third did not. In God's kingdom, He hasn't given us everything to do nothing with it. There is an expectation that we will use everything that He has given and that we will produce more out of it. Are we putting all that God has given us into action? If not, what's stopping us? Is it fear? Is it greed? Is it pride? And number 3 is the recognition of the master. When the master returns, the servants come and give an account to him about how they used the money he gave them. 2 servants did very well. They doubled what the master had given, and he was so proud of them. He said, "Well done, my good and my faithful servants. You did a great job." In fact, he says, let's celebrate together. In fact, you get to keep the money that you earned. You see, the master rewards those who have worked hard with what he's given them. And then when they produce more, he gave the rest to the servants. He was able to promote them and give them more responsibility afterwards. That's the kind of recognition we want to hear from our master. But there is one that did not receive such praise. He was called wicked and lazy. This is not the response that we want from our master. What we want to hear, and what should be a motivation in our hearts with everything we have and with every day that we get, is that we want to hear the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." So how would the master respond to you today? Are you being a good steward? Are you putting it all into action to produce great results? Will you hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant"? Thank you so much for joining us today. Come back tomorrow for the next Daily Word.